I'm Lisa. I'm the Barefoot Pampered Chef, and I'm working with some new technology right now, so bear with me. I am going to make today something that is making my house smell completely amazing and holiday-ish right now. And what we're going to use is these really nifty mini bundt cakes. So this is from Pampered Chef. This is one of the new fall and winter season items. I just got it yesterday and I automatically loved it. It's the greatest thing in the world. So what we're going to make today is a classic chocolate bundt cake, and I'm actually going to show you how to frost those really easily as well. And if anyone knows me, I'm really not the world's best baker, but I do know the science behind it, and I think that's what helps me along. So baking is more of a science with art behind it, whereas cooking is more of an art with a science behind it. So with the baking, you need to follow the recipe a little bit more because you're going to be using the scientific nature of the food to make it puff and rise and do what it's supposed to do. So the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our classic batter bowl, which is microwave safe, and we're going to add in 1 stick of butter, which is 1/2 cup of butter. This is at room temperature right now. I've just let it sitting out for a few minutes, but it really doesn't matter because we're going to melt it. To that, I'm going to add 1/2 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder. I'm using dark just because I like it a little bit more on the chocolatey side. And we're going to add 1/2 cup of brewed coffee. So I had some mountain blueberry coffee that I put in my machine, and so I'm going to use that today. We're going to pop this in the microwave for about 2 minutes until that butter melts. And while we're doing that, I'm going to show you a couple of different things. First of all, I've already put a little bit of olive oil in each of my bundt pan circles. I'm going to take my silicone basting brush and just run that up inside the creases, and this will help me take those bundt cakes out. What I did is, I'll show you, I already have another batch that I pre-made, and they slid out easily. I didn't have to do anything, I just flipped it over and they all fell out, which is what you want. So just run those along. I've already done a couple of these, so we'll just get that a little bit better there while we're waiting. Alright, so those are all nice and oiled. And so I'll tell you what we have here, and that I have my mise en place in place. So we'll go over it here in a second. But what I have in my bowl is 1 cup of sugar, and I already have my recipe written down right here for me. Always read through the recipe before you use it. And I have 1/2 teaspoon of salt. In this bowl, I have 1 egg that I've already cracked, and I've got about 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So I'm just going to shake that up so I don't have to beat it in there. And here I have 1/2 cup of Greek yogurt. This is our dry ingredients, so we're always going to add those separately. So in this bowl, I have 1 cup of flour, and I have 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder and 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. Don't get those two confused, they do different things. Baking powder has a P for plus. So baking powder is a mixture of baking soda plus cornstarch and a few other ingredients, whereas baking soda is just sodium bicarbonate. So they're going to do two different things. So like I said, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. All of these recipes are on the Pampered Chef website, as well as some other good bundt cake recipes. So our batter bowl has melted our butter, and it smells like just this steaming, hot, buttery, cocoa-y. I just want to melt my face in this. It smells really good. So I'm going to mix this together until that butter is completely melted all the way, and it's this nice, smooth, dark consistency. These cakes are definitely tall, dark, and handsome, just gotta say. Sorry, honey. All right. So just getting my cocoa powder mixed in here a little bit more. We're gonna add our half a teaspoon of salt, and we're gonna add our 1 cup of sugar. We're gonna mix that up until we can't see the sugar granules anymore. I'm using my classic scraper here, which is great for the spatter bowl. It really gets all of the sides, and the spatter bowl is super easy cleanup. So that's fairly well mixed, and the mixture looks ooey gooey and nice and just almost like an oil consistency, although I don't want to say that when I'm cooking. Now I'm going to add my 1 egg and my teaspoon of vanilla. I'll pour that in. Now, I'm not going to lie, I ran out of vanilla extract this morning, so I am using a teaspoon of raspberry extract, and I think that's why these smell so much more intense, is the raspberry is really kicking up that cocoa, and it's dark cocoa instead of milk cocoa. So I'm going to just mix that up, and then I'm going to add my half of a cup of Greek yogurt. Now this is the measure-all, and so it's really great because all I do is push and everything comes right out. Just scrape that across and it's clean. Mix that in. Just until you can't see the white of the yogurt anymore. And then we're going to add our dry ingredients. Now I want to say something really quickly about dry ingredients because I've done a lot of cooking classes I've gone to, and the thing that I've learned is a lot of us want to scoop the flour out of the container using our measuring cup, and that's not the way to do it because that actually packs in too much flour into your mixture. So what you want to do is take your measuring cup, hold it over your container, take a spoon and kind of shake the spoon and shake it into the measuring cup, and then take the back of the spoon, I don't want to use this, I'll use this. Take the back of the spoon and kind of shave off the top of it, but don't pack it in. And that way you'll get the perfect amount and you won't be packing in too much flour and your cake won't be too dense. So we're going to add our 1 cup of flour, our half a teaspoon of baking powder, P+, and our 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. And we're just going to gently mix this in so you don't get flour everywhere, unless you're baking with a kid, and then you're going to get flour everywhere anyway, which is fine. Accidents happen in the kitchen. That's what they made towels for. No use crying over spilt milk or spilt flour or broken eggs. So we're going to mix this up until it gets a really nice smooth consistency to it. And then we're going to pour it into our molds. Now you want to fill these molds only 3/4 of the way full. You do not want to overfill them or you're going to have giant bubbly cakes that don't sit right. So we're going to pour this in. I'm just going to pour a little bit in to make sure I have enough because this batter will make 6. I'm only pouring it into one side because it'll go around and I'll show you how we're going to accomplish that. Yes, the sound effects are needed when you are cooking, especially if you don't have music playing in the background, which I usually do if I'm not live. So we'll get that in there. Now there's a little bit left in my bowl. I'm going to use that if I need to top anything off. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give these a little shake and drop it 1 or 2 times. And what that does is it evens out and levels out my batter mix. Now I can tell that this one got shorted a little bit, so I'm going to give him a little bit extra. And this one over here looks like he got shorted a little bit as well, so I'm going to give him a little extra. And I think everybody else looks good, so I'm just going to give this another shake before I pop it into the oven at 350 degrees. And we're going to set that timer for 25 minutes. Maybe. So I've already had my oven preheated at 350 degrees, setting it for 25 minutes. If you don't really know your oven, what you can do is set it for like 12 and a half minutes, check it, see if you need to rotate the tray, and then set it again for another 12 and a half minutes. But realize that every time you open this, you're going to decrease the temperature and it's going to take a little bit longer to get it going back again. So when this is done, you're going to test it with a cake tester. So Pampered Chef has a cake tester. Or you can use a fork or something. You stick it in to the center part, pull it out, and if it comes out nice and clean with not any goop on it, then that means that they're done. You're going to sit them out for about 5 minutes before you flip them, and when you flip them, they should come out perfectly and you shouldn't have to be prying them out. So I've got a batch already made, so I'm going to show you what I'll do with these. So I've got my cooking sheet, or my cutting board down. What I'm going to use this for is a drip catcher. So I don't want to get stuff all over the place. So before I pull them over here, I'm going to show you our really nice cake glaze. It is a super easy recipe. You're going to use 1.5 cups of powdered sugar. Now remember that flour technique with the powdered sugar as well. We don't want to pack that into the cup. The only thing that you want to pack is brown sugar if it says to pack it. 3 tablespoons of milk to that 1.5 cups of your powdered sugar, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Now I did have just enough vanilla left this morning to make this, so this is vanilla. And I added a little bit of green food dye because, well, I'm me and I love green, and I wanted these cakes to match my hair. So that's why. So I'm going to put this off to the side for 1 second. I'm going to bring my cakes over. So I have them on a cooling wire rack. And they've been cooling for a little while because, quite frankly, hot cakes don't ice. The icing won't stick. So they're nice and cool to the touch. Aren't these the most little darling things in the world? You could fill this with ice cream and then serve it. Greatest thing ever. So the tip for today is this is the bottom of my manual food processor. And this is the perfect size to fit the top of my cake down in, and we're going to use that to ice it. So I'm just going to dip it in and swirl it a little bit, and we're going to pull it out, and it makes almost the perfect little glaze. And then I'm going to sit it on my tray, or my wire rack that's over top of my cutting board to catch any of the drips that may run down the edges. So I'm going to do 2 of these. I'll do the rest in a minute, but I wanted to show you something else that we're going to do. So there's 2 of those. And we're going to take some glitter, just edible glitter. And we're going to sprinkle that on top of these so that they're all nice and pretty. And that's the other great thing about this cutting board underneath is I can just pick all this up and throw it into the trash when I'm done, and clean up is a breeze. The other thing that's great is if I have some of this glaze left over, the manual processor has a storage lid. Just pop it back on, put it in my refrigerator, and I have glaze to use later. So hopefully you enjoyed this demonstration. I'll post a picture on Instagram of the finished product for you. You can find that at #BarefootPC. Or you can find that on Twitter at #BarefootPC. You can also find me on YouTube at the Barefoot Pampered Chef channel. And you can find me at www.pamperedchef.com. facebook.biz/Lisa Wright, LISAWRIGHT. And I hope you guys have a good day.